Hello and welcome to Tech Tool India. In this video, I'm going to explain you about login with OTP in Laravel 9. To get started with this, you need to have a Laravel 9 installed in your local. In order to know how you can install Laravel 9, you can watch a video. The link of video is given to description. And I have also installed authentication package Laravel UI in order to know how you can make login and registration by using Laravel UI package. You can watch the video. The video link is given in description. So let's get started with this. If you install Laravel authentication scaffolding, you will get this register and login link. In register, in the last video we have used the username in order to log in with the system. Now what we can do, as we are taking name, username and email address, in order to have that OTP verification, we need to register a user with the mobile number in order to send the one-time password. Before moving further in the video, if you're coming to the channel for the very first time, you subscribe our channel to never miss any video on a Laravel. So let's get started. In order to add any new field in the users table, what we need to do, we need to create a migration file to add the users mobile number in a users table. Right now, if you see this users table, we don't have any mobile number in the database. So let's go ahead and create a migration file. In order to create a migration file, what we can do, we can run a command php artisan make migration, and the name of migration is add mobile number in users table, right? So in this way, it will create a migration to add a mobile number in users table. In order to see where your migration file has been created, you need to go into a database folder. In that we have a migrations folder, and there your file has been created. If you see the file, you will get two functions, up and down. In both the function you can write, add a column and drop a column. So in order to add a column, what I just want to add field, let's say string, and the name of a field is mobile number, and this can be a nullable field, and I want this to be after username, right? So this will create add a mobile number column in the table after username, right? Let's go ahead, and in the drop, if I drop this particular migration, what it does, drop column, and the name of column would be mobile number, the same which we are adding, right? So that's it. Let's go ahead and run this migration. In order to run a migration, we need to run a command php artisan migrate. As soon as you run this command, you see this is migrating and then migrated. So this has been migrated. Let's go ahead and open our database and see if this field has been reflected here or not. Let's refresh this. As you see now, after the username, we have this mobile number field present in a users table. So the next thing which we need to do, in the register, we need to have a mobile number field as well. So here, let's go into the code, open the resource file, views. In the auth, we have a register.blade.php. Just after the username, let's add another field which is mobile number, right? So copy this and I'll paste it here. Instead of username, I'm going to call it mobile number, correct? So it will be a mobile number, right? So we have this additional field here. Let's give it a refresh, and then you'll see we have mobile number. I just need to change a little bit here so that it looks good. I have given it mobile number, right? You can see we have a mobile number field as well. Now what we need to change, we need to go into register controller and change the, in auth we have a register controller. With the username, what we require mobile number here, right? So we have a mobile number. In the validation as well, with the username we require a mobile number validation, so that it is a required field for registration. Cool. So we have this here. The very next thing which we need to do, because it's a mass assigning the data, we need to have a fillable property in the users model. Let's open this model, users model. As soon as you open this model, you'll see there is a fillable array. So it's allowing the name, username, email and password. With this, we need to have our mobile number field as well. So we have updated our blade, controller and the model. Let's go ahead, refresh this page, and another user we need to register here, and I just giving any random mobile number, right? I'm just giving a random email address, and in a password I'm going to use a random password. So let's register it. As you see, we have successfully registered here. So now if I go to database and see the data here, let's refresh this. You see in a mobile number column we have this mobile number. Of course you can add some validation while registering, like it should be maximum of 10 here instead of 255. It should be a 10 digit only, right? Let's log out. Now if you see the login function which we have with the username and password. So it is going to work because username login we already made in the last video. Now what we need to do, we need to have another login function which use the OTP verification, and based on that OTP any user can log in our system. So to do that, what we need to do first, we need to create a user verification model and a table which will hold OTP, and based on that we will verify our users, right? So for that we need to create a model with the migration. Let's run this command to make model with the migration. PHP artisan make model will give the name of model is a verification code because it will hold the verification, and just pass the -m and it will create a model with the migration, right? So as soon as you do this, you'll see we have in app models, we have verification code model, right? And then we have our database migrations and this new migration file, right? So we have created our model as well as migrations. So in the verification code table, what we need to do, we need to have a user ID, big integer, and it will be a user ID. So we'll have a user ID column. The next thing which we require in this table will be our OTP. So to hold OTP, we need a string which will name as OTP, and that's it. The next thing which we require, expire at, right? So which will tell us when our OTP has been expired, correct? This is how we can use our table. This just hold a user ID, OTP, and then when that OTP will expire. Cool. So let's save this, and in our verification code table we need to have this fillable property. In order to define that fillable property, we need to have a protected variable which will be a fillable, and that will accept an array which will be our user ID, column name of the table, the user ID, and OTP as well as expires at. The name of the field is expire at. Let's run the migration. As soon as you run this migration, migrate. So there is some error in a migration. Let's see. So instead of timestamps, we need to have this timestamp that and mark this field as a nullable field so that it will not give this error, right? Let's clear the command and run this php artisan migrate. Now if you see, the migration has been successfully created. So the catch here is you need to have this timestamp and the name of the field, and this should be a null label, right? So let's go in our database and refresh this. Now if you see, we have this verification codes here, and if you see the structure, we have a user ID, OTP, expires at. Now we have our database and models ready. The next thing which we need to have, we need to create a controller, another controller which will handle our login with OTP system, right? In order to create a new controller, I need to write a php artisan make command, make controller, and then in the controller, the name of the controller, auth OTP controller. The name of controller would be auth OTP controller, right? So the controller has been created. Let's open the controller in a app http controllers, and then we have this controller, right? So now the next thing which we need to do is open our roots file. In that, we have to register our roots in order to load the OTP login page, right? To do that, what I'm going to do, the very first thing here, I'll create a group. I'll just name this as a controller, and in the controller I'll pass, or I just need to pass the class of this controller, auth OTP controller, and this will be a class, and I'll group this, right? I'll group this to so that we can access all the function of that particular controller. So we have the group. Now I'll just create a simple get root which will hold /OTP/login, and then the next thing which we need to pass here is to the name of function. The name of function would be login. Simple, right? That's it. I can give it a name. The name of this controller, OTP.login, right? So this will return our OTP login page. It will return the view of OTP login page. Cool. The name of function would be login, and it will not accept anything. It just return a view file. In order to return a view file, we need to have a view file. So I'm just going ahead and in the resources folder, views, auth, I'll create a new file here, and name is OTP login .blade.php, correct? And what I'm going to do here, I'm just simply copying everything from login.blade.php to the OTP login.blade.php. The things which I'm going to change here, instead of login, I'll say it OTP login, right? And instead of this root, I'm going to give another root here later, just after this, and instead of username, I'll call it I require a mobile number in order to generate OTP, and instead of this, I'll name it mobile number so that we can have a mobile number to generate the OTP, right? Here as well, instead of username, I just paste everywhere a mobile number, as we don't require a password, so I'll just give it back. I will not give any option of remember me, just remove this. It will have a login button, and then I'm just giving this link to, instead of forget password, I'll call it login with username, right? If this wants to log in with the username, it will go to the login, correct? So just here, and on the login page, what I need to have a link which will simply say login with OTP, right? In order to give a link here, I will give it a login dot, what we have given the name for this, let's see, we have given OTP dot login, right? So we'll call this OTP dot login. Cool. And in the controller, we'll return here a view file, return view. In the view, we will have auth dot OTP login. Cool. So we have all set. Let's go into the browser, refresh this page. You'll see there is a link, login with OTP. If you click on this, you redirect it to the page which holds this OTP login. In order to get this OTP, you need to have your mobile number. Let's little bit adjust the language here. Instead of login, generate OTP, and here as a placeholder, we need to placeholder and enter your registered mobile number. Now, in order to generate OTP, we need to have another function. Call this function. This would be a post method, and it will a generate function. Instead of login, we'll call OTP dot generate. Create this function in a controller. So here we'll call it generate OTP, and to generate the OTP, what we need to have? We need to have a function called generate, right? And this will be a request, accept the form request data. So it has a request. Now the very first thing we need to do here is to validate, right? Validate data. In order to validate the data, what we can simply write the request and then validate, and inside rules, what we require a mobile number field which should be there, and what kind of validation it will be a first thing will be it will a required field. The next thing will be it should exist, and the table name, which tables? Users table, and the column name will be again the mobile number. So this will make sure the only registered number should generate a OTP. It will not pass the unregistered number. So that's our first thing. So it will validate the data. The second thing would be generate an OTP. In order to generate a OTP, what we need to make sure first, let's create another function here, name generate OTP, right? And here it will only accept the mobile number, and based on that it will do return a generated OTP. So the first thing, it will make sure user does not have any existing OTP. The user will be need to have our user model where mobile number should be the given mobile number, and the first data, call it our user, right? And the next thing here in the verification code would be user ID, right? And the user. We will check if there is any verification code, or call it a latest. The latest code, it will fetch the latest code, right? If any user has any verification code in our table, it will give the latest record out of those. And in the latest record, what we need to check, we need to take a current time. We need to make sure one thing here while generating a OTP. If any user has already requested an OTP, so it will not expire for next 10 minutes. Within the 10 minutes, if the user is requesting again, so it should send the same OTP in order and avoid generating any new OTP. So in order to do that, what we'll do, we'll just fetch the latest verification code. If the verification code expire time is yet to come, then we will return the same verification code. Otherwise, what we'll do, we'll generate a new verification code. Got it? So we'll take the current time. In order to take the current time, I'm just going to use this carbon now. So it will take the current time, and what it will do, if the verification code, and if there is a verification code found, and we'll check is before, right? So the current time is before the expiring time, then we will just return the same verification code, right? Return the verification code. Otherwise, what we need to do, so in order to create a new OTP, what we need to do, we need to have that verification code model, and in that model we'll call it create, and then we'll pass an array and just return this. In that array, what will be there? The first thing will be user ID. The user ID will be the user's ID, and the next thing will be OTP, right? So the OTP will be a random of OTP will be generated for this, and then we'll have a expire at, right? We'll have a expire at column, which will be again carbon now, and then add minutes. So it will add 10 minutes from the current time. Cool. So it will generate a new OTP from here. So let's call it verification code, and this will pass the generate OTP and the request of mobile number, right? So this will generate a verification code for us. The next thing you can do here is to send an SMS with the verification code OTP. But in this tutorial, I'm not going to integrate any SMS gateway to send this OTP. What I'm going to do this here is to flash the OTP on the screen so that you can enter the same OTP and verify that, right? So what we'll do, return with OTP. Return with OTP, correct? So in order to do that, we require OTP verification key, right? So for that, what I'll do, I will just create a new file inside the auth folder, call it OTP verification .blade.php, right? In that, what I'll do, I'll just copy the same thing in a OTP login blade, paste it here, and now I'll just change few things here, right? So the very first thing I'll change here, instead of mobile number it should be a OTP, right? And then again, everywhere where we have a mobile number we should have a OTP, and enter one time password, enter OTP, right? So we will have this, and in here we'll say login. Let's save this, and in OTP login we need to give this form a root action, right? In the action, what will pass, will give the root of OTP dot generate. So we'll copy this OTP root and then give it in the form, right? So we have this generate form which will generate our OTP, and in the function we need to return a. So we have redirected on the verification screen with the success message which holds the OTP. So in the OTP verification, what we need to do here, in the card body, let's refresh again, paste the mobile number. As you can see, we have generated an OTP, and the OTP is 371782. So we are flashing the data here just because we are not sending any SMS, real SMS. You can use any SMS APIs to send the SMS, right? So next we need to verify this OTP and logged in user, right? To do that, we need to make another route which is for verification, right? So to do that, we'll call it OTP login, right? So it will be our login with OTP, OTP dot get login. Cool. So we have login with OTP function. Let's create this function in our auth OTP controller. Let's write down this function. So the name of function would be login with OTP, and then we have, so here we need two things. One is the user ID, the second is the OTP which particular user has been verifying, right? So the very first thing which we need to create here is a validation for correct data, right? So to do that, what we'll do, we'll create a request validate function, and in that we'll pass the rules. We require this user ID, as well as we require, this should be a required field, as well as this should exist in the users table, and the column is ID. And the second thing which required is OTP, right? So to enter that and to validate, we just required, it's a required field, and then we'll write our validation logic here. So what we'll do, we'll call it verification code, and we'll get it through verification code where user ID is the requested user ID, request of user ID, and then where OTP is equals to the requested OTP, right? Now the similar thing which we have done for generating a OTP, we just need to make sure if this OTP has been expired. So what we need to do here, we need to return a redirect on OTP redirect to a root. The root name is OTP.login, and with the error message, if not, then we need to log in the user. So we need to have a user with the help of this user model where id is equals to $request of user id, right? So before going for a login, we need to pass user ID in the verification form. The validation for user ID will fail because we haven't passed the user ID from here. So the very next thing which we need to do here was a user ID along with root. So we can update this root for verification with this user ID, right? So it will be a user ID from the URL. When we are returning, let's take this user ID here, and while returning we'll pass this user ID with user ID. We'll pass it in array. The user ID will be with this particular function URL, right? Cool. So we will pass this verification page. Here on the verification, what we need to do, we just need to add an input field, right? We just need a type of this to be hidden, and the name of this should be a user ID, and the value will be the user ID coming from the controller. We can see if there is a user, then we can simply use the auth login function. In that, just pass this user, and as we are not taking any remember parameters, so it will just log in them and redirect them to login with OTP. I'm just entering the the mobile number I have generated. I'm just copying this. Let's test with any wrong OTP. So it's right now it's logging with the wrong OTP as well. So we need to prevent that. In order to do that, we'll go ahead and generate the OTP. And now when the OTP verification is there, here write down a if condition, and if not of verification code, so we need a different message, and then here in else if condition we need a expired message, right? Here we'll say OTP is not correct, right? It's not correct, and generate OTP because it's not expired, so it's giving the same OTP. Let's go ahead, and instead of redirecting it to the OTP login, we need to have the similar kind of flash on here to the OTP verification. Let's call it alert danger, so that we can simply, because it's coming on from the same request, we can simply use this. So if I simply redact this, OTP is not correct. Regenerate OTP. So 209240. If I enter any random OTP, it's wrong. If I enter the correct OTP, it's going to log in. So we have successfully logged in with the OTP. Right now, if I go ahead and log in with OTP, generate it. Now if you see, since we already used this OTP, it's not giving a new OTP until the 10 minutes, the limit which we have set, is passed. So what we need to update again, when we validate any OTP, we need to expire that right away, right? So here, when a user is logged in, before that we need to expire the OTP. To do that, what we need to do, so let's use this verification code, right? Verification code, where I think we already have this verification code here. So all we need to do here, let's call this verification code update, and in the update let's pass this expire at, and in that let's pass the current timestamp, right? So this will update this OTP. Cool. So let's go ahead and log in this system. Now as soon as you logged in and log out, then log in again with the OTP. Let's generate the OTP. Now you can see a different OTP, right? So let's do ahead. Let's check the database and verify if it is generating properly or not. So now if you see, so it has a 10-minute difference, but as soon as I log in with this, now if I refresh this, you see this has been expired ad has been updated with the current time. So this is how you can generate an OTP and log in with that. In order to do that, it's very simple. We just need to make sure like it is generated and verified properly. You can obviously modify the way we are doing everything, but it's the simplest way you can generate a OTP login. Still, if you have any issues, please do write your comments. I'll try to solve them. If you find this video helpful, please do subscribe our channel, like this video. Till the next video, keep watching, keep learning. Thank you for watching.